I said, what's your 10-year plan? And they're like, why do you care? We just want a new building. I need to know I'm designing. What do you need this for? They said, well, our bathrooms are bad, so we need a new building. I was like, okay, that's a good reason. So why don't you just fix the bathrooms? It's like, that's not enough. We need more. I said, you're right. Maybe you do. So we were at the EDN last week, and one of the things we discussed, which is very specific, the EDN is, again, reiterated, is about something called the Executive Directors Network, which is focused on religious schools and solely on religious schools. And it's about bringing the entire executive directors of the religious schools together to give them education. And one of the things I like about this event versus other events is a lot of times we go to events which are industry specific. And you go to an event industry specific, you're basically meeting everybody that you know already in the industry. What I like about this particular event, which is different than most other events, is that the event is focused on something other than my industry. It's actually about schooling, and it's about education for the schools, education for the executive directors. They have classes, they have symposiums, they teach the executive directors about how to manage their schools and function their schools. And to us, they're there for a different reason. And because they're there for a different reason, there is actually a lot of them there. And they enjoy going because there's an education. And the schools pay for them to go because they have the education component to it, and it's very important to them. And they serve good food. I mean, come on. A lot of sushi. How else can you go for that, right? So that component is very important. Why we like being at that event is because of that. Now, I want to just I'm going to talk about what we spoke about at the event in a second, but one of the things I wanted to talk about is going to events that are not industry specific is extremely component-wise to getting work, is because when you're in an event that is meant for everybody else, there's 40 architects there or 40 insurance agents, and they're all fighting for the same business. But if you're there to network an event that doesn't really belong to your thing, there's 2 architects there that decided that it might be a good idea to go, or there's 1 insurance broker, but everybody else is related to the school stuff in that particular case, so they're not really there for the same thing. So you get a lot of attention, which is important. Imagine an architect going to a dog show. I know it sounds a little weird, but if you think about it for a second, it makes a lot of sense, because you go in there, you're the one architect. So if someone has to design a dog show, you're the guy, right? Who else are they talking to? Going to a show which is not industry specific, I believe, is so much better than going to industry specific events. And we find that in general, just one point I wanted to bring out. But we spoke at this EDN, we spoke heavily about school design and understanding what designs a school. And we've done about 150 schools throughout the country. And we're focused on projections and understanding what you're designing for. A lot of people design schools for expansion, right? So we had a school that called us the other day and they said, we want to design the school. And the first question I asked this executive director who reached out to us to design a new school, I said, what's your 10-year plan? And they're like, why do you care? We just want a new building. It's like, I need to know I'm designing. What do you need this for? They said, well, our bathrooms are bad, so we need a new building. I was like, okay, that's a good reason. So why don't you just fix the bathrooms? It's like, that's not enough. We need more. I said, you're right. Maybe you do. But you need to tell me what you plan on doing with it, so the better and understanding that I understand what you're looking for and what your growth is, I can help you plan the future. I can help you understand the classroom sizes, the size of the amount of classrooms, the size of the gym. What are those components that are necessary? What is your plan? What are you really designing for? Who are you designing for? What are those kids like? Do you want to bring in a preschool? Do you want to bring in do you want to bring in a kindergarten? Do you want to bring in pre-1K? Then if you want to, do you want to have embedded in there agencies like, for instance, do you want to have an Article 31 in New York, which is something that is educational, you can actually get tax abatements for? I don't know, but I need you to think about it. If you can't think about your 10-year plan or your 5 to 10-year plan, you got to really think about the future. The more you think about the future, the more you think about your operations, understanding the projections, understanding what your school does, that gives us the ability to help you design your school. And that's really what we were trying to explain to these executive directors. You have to have internal conversations, heavy internal conversations. And that means, so we actually gave out, we handed out something which is a actual checklist, or I'll call more like a questionnaire that we give to the principals as well as the people that run the schools, as well as the people who run the kitchen. Go in there, analyze your school, analyze it so well that that we understand the school as well as you understand the school. And if we understand the school as architects as good as you understand the school as operators, that gives us the ability to really hone in on the spaces. Like, we were just in another school a different day, and they told us they need half classrooms. I'll explain that one in a second. They needed quarter classrooms, and they needed private rooms. Now, and they needed reading specialist rooms. It's like, what are these differences in rooms? So a half classroom is when they have troubled kids and they want to just take them all together and they pull them out. So they have a specialized teacher that goes to that particular class. So they'll pull out a mid-sized class. These are just more learning aspects so they can actually teach them. Then there's a quarter classroom where if they can't control so many kids in such a space, they'll actually move them into a quarter classroom because they can actually, smaller amount of kids are easier to control because then you can have 1, 2, 4, and that could actually control them, right? That component is very important. Same thing with private rooms. What's a reading specialist room? That's one type of room. What's a specialized room elsewhere? Also a different type of room. There's a lot of those aspects, and the more we understand those aspects, the more we understand your inner working of your school, the projection on what you want your school to operate as, that gives us the ability to really understand your school. That's what we spoke about the EDM, but I want to also take into account, this is not just about schools. In a house, how do you want to live it? Every component of what you do as an architect, we might go into more of this components into different aspects and different designs, whether it's a housing design, whether it's multifamily design, whether it's a commercial office space, whether it's a parole office space, which we design. All these things have, or a chocolate factory. We designed a chocolate factory. You know Charlie in a chocolate factory? Not his. But we designed a chocolate factory. It's pretty cool. And we designed a commissary kitchen for multiple bakeries. We designed a lot of weird stuff and a lot of functioning components. But the key component to all these things are, and I might talk about them at a later date, all those things. The key component to designing a good space is us understanding the space as good as you do, maybe even better. We have to understand it from a flow, from a usability, from a function perspective, from an aesthetics perspective, and as well from the future use. And one of the things I want to talk about, and we'll talk about it at a later date, is understanding that one of the jobs of an architect and one of the jobs as a business owner in general is to do their best to predict the future. I know it sounds like crazy, you might just buy a lottery ticket if you can predict the future. They might be right, because it makes it easier to think, but at the end of the day, if we cannot predict the future, we are bad businessmen. Our job is to look to the future, predict the future as best as we possibly can, and that's ultimately the goal. With that, I'd like to continue this conversation going forward. Please like, subscribe for better and more information.